V1. V1. V1.
V1 rotate.
V1. V1.
Rotate.
V1. Rotate. What is it? Why do we rotate? Why do we V1? What does it all mean? Well, on a research quest to find out, we ended up creating something that's never been seen before. We'll get to that. Like all stories, this one started on Reddit, so you know it's going to end well. I already had a general idea of what V1 was by this point, aka the point of no return, but I wanted a little bit more info. Hey y'all, I'm learning about V-speeds. I've seen an interesting comment regarding V1. First, we'll start with my own definition to see if I got it right or not. Here goes. V1 is a distance in which there's no longer enough remaining runway space to abort the takeoff. It's a distance on the runway where all of your problems you face henceforth must be taken into the air. Now to the interesting thing I've heard. I'm paraphrasing, but I heard that in a single-engine aircraft, V1 is actually the takeoff speed because on loss of an engine, there's not enough power to clear any obstacles, or something to that effect. Of course, my obvious question is, which is it? Is it the distance to safely stop, or the speed to rotate? Kinda defeats the purpose of having a name if it means two different things. Anyway, go easy on me, will ya? Thanks as always. Reddit was pissed. Not on my website. I gotta say something about this.
You fucking idiot. No, it's not odd. You're catching downloads because when you say shit like that, you're coming across intriguing rather than curious.
That was fun. Anyway, despite the noise, some people were really helpful in providing context and valuable information. This guy's name is Naked Jamaican. I'm going to try to read this in a Jamaican accent. Hold on. V1 is a long, deep rabbit hole, man. Learn both balance and I can't. Alright, I'm just gonna outsource this part.
V1 are one long, deep rabbit hole. Learn both balance and unbalanced fields, you know. All of the statements them in your post them either complete incorrect or incomplete. Nobody worry about it. Me know about plenty of seasoned pilots when I understand it either. At we airline, the computer usually calculate a range of speeds and then simply pick a number in the middle of the range.
Alright. I'm getting distracted. As I was saying, all the contradictions between some of the answers that people posted made me realize that the answer wasn't as straightforward as I thought. You may be asking yourself by now, so what does V1 mean? Get to the point already. We'll get there. But first, let's take a page out of Naked Jamaican's book to talk about a concept called balance field length of a runway. Also, you can skip ahead if you already know what it is or don't really care. See ya. Alright, listen up. Class is in session. Today we're going to be talking about the balance field length of a runway. A balance field length is a performance metric that essentially means the takeoff distance on a single engine going all the way up to 35 feet over the runway is the same exact distance as the accelerate stop distance. When it comes to options, this gives pilots the most bang for their buck whenever they're departing from a given airport. Okay, so let's talk about the takeoff distance versus the accelerate stop distance. The contributing factors to takeoff distance are the aircraft weight, weather, including but not limited to the density, altitude, and the wind conditions, the runway characteristics, whether or not it has a slope, and the length, and the surface conditions of the same runway, the material, and what's covering the material of the runway, whether it's wet, dry, or covered in chicken bones. Now, what define the accelerate stop distance are the same aircraft weight, the engine power, and your decision point, aka V1. And this brings us to our official definition of V1. V1 is defined as both the highest speed you can go before braking if something goes wrong, or the lowest speed you can lose an engine on and still take off if something goes wrong. Finally, V1 is based on a few factors itself. Those factors are rotation speed, flap setting, weight configuration, a static engine power setting, and even things like air conditioning and anti-icing settings. Both features take power away from the engine and can affect your ability to take off. One thing to note here is that V1 is not purely a mathematical calculation. It's based on static runway data of a control test in a control environment and gets adjusted based on the aforementioned factors. You can get all the information you need about V-speeds, including V1 and VR and VREF, in your AFM. AFM stands for Airplane Flying Manual. Or, if you're on a more modern aircraft, it's going to be in your Flight Management System, FMS, or your Flight Management Computer, FMC. Alright, so this is the V-speed chart for the Embraer E175. It's a little complex, but I'll break it down for you. So on the top left side, you'll see the pressure altitude, aka density altitude. The number determines which row you're going to be using to reference the rest of the chart. From there, you move over to the right side and you'll see the static air temperature. The air temperature decides what column you're going to be working with from here. Moving down, you'll see the aircraft weight. This will determine the final row you'll use for V1, VR, which is V-rotate, and V2. At the end of the row, you'll see VFS. VFS stands for final segment climb speed. That'll be a topic for another day. Alright, it seems very complicated, but the important takeaway here is this. If an engine fails before you hear V1, or right as you hear V1, you abort the takeoff by braking. Any later than that, you take your problems into the sky. Alright, any questions? No? Alright, well go fly. Alright, so that's everything you need to know when it comes to V1. With that being said, as it stands, there's a few problems with V1 that make it a little less than optimal. As a side note from the future, there's a lot more factors that play into takeoff distance, accelerate stop distance, and most importantly V1. So definitely do your own research on the side. From the research I've done, there's no mention of the front of the plane being used instead of the rest of the plane itself, which is an important distinction. When starting on the runway, it's important to know that the start point is offset by whatever distance your nose is relative to the remainder of the runway space. It may not seem like much, but that's a few milliseconds and a few feet of extra runway more of an informed decision. It's speed-based, and not necessarily speed and distance-based. This means any space you need to center your plane isn't always considered. Small engine issues, stutters, inoptimal unrecognized runway surface conditions like new cracks, and even variances in engine spool times from in to redline, or the engine's max power, with an added delay for torque-related issue prevention, and other small factors, may lead to an overall longer time to reach V1 than expected, though most of the time it's negligible. All things considered, we took to the old ATF lab behind the scenes, and ended up coming up with a way to visually understand V1. Introducing Visual V1 Ref, or Visual V1 for short. But it's a simple way on supported runways to be able to visualize when there's no longer sufficient space to be able to stop and you have to take your problems into the air. If, however, you're on a single engine or piston engine aircraft, you can use this to gauge V refusal speed, aka VREF, which is essentially just the max speed in which you can stop with runway space remaining. Sound familiar, right? For the rest of the aircraft, you can use this as a visual V1 indicator so you know where you stand in any given takeoff. This works by taking your static braking data and combining it with the ratio of your aircraft's position relative to the runway, adjusted for acceleration, and most importantly, the front of the plane. Simply put, under the somewhat universal taxi speed of around 50 knots, the indicator stays green. Above that, it turns yellow, meaning you've officially committed to the takeoff. Red means V1 has officially been reached, or VREF is no longer an option. Don't try stopping after red, or you'll risk some heavy aircraft damage. Finally, a way to visualize a life-saving aviation safety concept not shown anywhere else in the world. For that and more, we'll see you on our GTA flight sim server called All Things Flight, and additionally, we'll see you in the skies.